Lance Armstrong.
Lance Edward Armstrong is an American former professional road racing cyclist. Armstrong had won the Tour de France a record 7 consecutive times between 1999 and 2005 before he was disqualified from all those races and banned from competitive cycling for life, for doping offenses by the Union Cycliste Internationale in 2012, after the United States Anti-Doping Agency presented it the evidence. A cancer survivor, he is the founder of the Livestrong Foundation, originally called the Lance Armstrong Foundation, which provides support for cancer patients. At age 16, Armstrong began competing as a triathlete and was a national sprint course triathlon champion in 1989 and 1990. In 1992, Armstrong began his career as a professional cyclist with the Motorola team. He had notable success between 1993 and 1996, including the World Championship in 1993, Classica de San Sebastian in 95, Tour du Pont in 95 and 96, and a handful of stage victories in Europe, including stage 18 of the 1995 Tour de France. In October 1996, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer that had spread to his brain, lungs and abdomen. His cancer treatments included brain and testicular surgery and extensive chemotherapy. In February 1997, he was declared cancer-free, and the same year he founded the Lance Armstrong Foundation. By January 1998, Armstrong had renewed serious cycling training, having signed a new racing contract with U.S. Postal. He was a member of the U.S. Postal Discovery Team between 1998 and 2005. On July 24, 2005, Armstrong retired from racing at the end of the 2005 Tour de France, but returned to competitive cycling with the Astana team in January 2009. Between 2010 and 2011, he raced with the UCI Pro team he helped found, Team Radio Shack. On February 16, 2011, Armstrong announced his retirement from competitive cycling. At the time he was facing a U.S. federal investigation into doping allegations. In June 2012, USADA charged Armstrong with having used illicit performance-enhancing drugs. On August 24, 2012, USADA announced that Armstrong had been issued a lifetime ban from competition, applicable to all sports which follow the World Anti-Doping Agency Code. USADA also stripped Armstrong of his 7 Tour de France titles. The USADA report concluded that Armstrong engaged in the most sophisticated, professionalized and successful doping program that sport has ever seen. On October 22, 2012, UCI upheld USADA's decision. It also decided that his stripped wins would not be allocated to other riders. Armstrong chose not to appeal the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Despite having denied drug use throughout his career, in January 2013 he admitted to doping in a television interview conducted by Oprah Winfrey. In September 2013, he was asked by UCI's new president, Brian Cookson, to testify completely about his doping. Armstrong refused to testify until and unless he got a complete amnesty, which Cookson said is most unlikely to happen.
Early life.
Armstrong was born on September 18, 1971, at Methodist Hospital in Plano, Texas, north of Dallas to Linda Gale, née Munium, a secretary, and Eddie Charles Gunderson, a route manager for the Dallas Morning News. His great-grandfather was the son of Norwegian immigrants. He was named after Lance Rentzel, a Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. His parents divorced when Lance was 2 and his father has 2 children from another relationship. His mother later married Terry Keith Armstrong, a wholesale salesman, who adopted Lance in 1974.
Career. Early career.
At the age of 12, Armstrong started his sporting career as a swimmer at the City of Plano Swim Club and finished 4th in Texas State 1,500-meter freestyle. He stopped swimming only races after seeing a poster for a junior triathlon, called the Iron Kids Triathlon, which he won at age 13. In the 1987 to 1988 Tri-Fed Texas, Tri-Fed was the former name of USA Triathlon. Armstrong was ranked the #1 triathlete in the 19 and under group. Second place was Chan McRae, who became a U.S. Postal Service cycling teammate and the 2002 USPRO national champion. Armstrong's total points in 1987 as an amateur were better than those of 5 professionals ranked higher than he was that year. At 16, Lance Armstrong became a professional triathlete and became national sprint course triathlon champion in 1989 and 1990 at 18 and 19, respectively.
Motorola, 1992-96.
In 1992 Armstrong turned professional with the Motorola cycling team, the successor of 7-Eleven team. In 1993, Armstrong won 10 one-day events and stage races, but his breakthrough victory was the UCI Road World Championship held in Norway. Before his World's win, he took his first win at the Tour de France, in the stage from Chalon-sur-Marne to Verdun. He was 97th in the general classification when he retired after stage 12. He also collected the Thrift Drug Triple Crown of Cycling, the Thrift Drug Classic in Pittsburgh, the Kmart West Virginia Classic, and the Core States USPRO National Championship in Philadelphia. In 1994, he again won the Thrift Drug Classic and came second in the Tour du Pont in the United States. His successes in Europe occurred when he placed second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège and the Classico de San Sebastian, where just 2 years before, he had finished in last place as his first all-pro event in Europe. He won the Classico de San Sebastian in 1995, followed by an overall victory in the penultimate Tour du Pont and a handful of stage victories in Europe, including the stage to Limoges in the Tour de France, 3 days after the death of his teammate Fabio Casartelli, who crashed on the descent of the Col de Portet d'Aspet on the 15th stage. Armstrong's successes were much the same in 1996. He became the first American to win the La Flèche Wallonne and again won the Tour du Pont. However, he was able to compete for only 5 days in the Tour de France. In the 1996 Olympic Games, he finished 6th in the time trial and 12th in the road race. In August 1996, following the Leeds Classic, Armstrong signed a 2-year, $2 million deal with the French Cofidis cycling team. Joining him in signing contracts with the French team were teammates Frankie Andrew and Laurent Medours. 2 months later, in October 1996, he was diagnosed with advanced testicular cancer.
Cancer.
On October 2, 1996, then aged 25, Armstrong was diagnosed as having stage 3, advanced, testicular cancer, embryonal carcinoma. The cancer spread to his brain, lungs and abdomen. On his first visit to urologist Jim Reeves, in Austin, Texas, for his cancer symptoms, he was coughing up blood and had a swollen testicle. On October 3, Armstrong had an orchiectomy to remove his diseased testicle. Asked in a later interview what he thought Armstrong's chances really were, Dr. Reeves said almost none. We told Lance initially 20 to 50% chance, mainly to give him hope. But with the kind of cancer he had, with the X-rays, the blood tests, almost no hope. After receiving a letter from and talking to an oncologist at Vanderbilt University, Dr. Stephen Wolfe, Armstrong went to the Indiana University Medical Center in Indianapolis. He decided to receive the rest of his treatment there. The standard treatment for Armstrong's cancer was a cocktail of the drugs bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin, or platinol, BEP. The first chemocycle that Armstrong underwent was BEP. For the 3 remaining chemocycles, however, he was given an alternative, vinblastine etoposide, ifosfamide, and cisplatin, BIP, to avoid the lung toxicity associated with bleomycin. This decision saved his cycling career. At Indiana University, Lawrence Einhorn had pioneered the use of cisplatin to treat testicular cancer. Armstrong's primary oncologist there was Craig Nichols. On October 25, his brain lesions were surgically removed by Scott A. Shapiro, MD, professor of neurosurgery at Indiana University and resident director, and were found to contain extensive necrosis. Armstrong's last chemotherapy treatment was received on December 13, 1996. In February 1997, he was declared cancer-free, but shortly afterward came the news that his contract with the Cofidis team had been cancelled. A former boss at Subaru Montgomery offered him a contract with the U.S. Postal team on a salary of $200,000 a year. By January 1998, Armstrong was already engaged in serious training for racing, moving to Europe with the team. A pivotal week, April 1998, in his comeback was one he spent training in the very challenging Appalachian terrain around Boone, North Carolina, with his racing friend Bob Roll.
U.S. Postal Discovery, 1998 to 2005.
Before his cancer treatment, Armstrong had won 2 Tour de France stages. In 1993, he won the 8th stage, and in 1995, he took stage 18 in honor of teammate Fabio Casartelli, who crashed and died on stage 15. Armstrong dropped out of the 1996 Tour after the 5th stage after becoming ill, a few months before his diagnosis. Armstrong's cycling comeback began in 1998 when he finished 4th in the Vuelta a España. In 1999 he won the Tour de France, including 4 stages. He beat the second rider, Alex Soule, by 7 minutes 37 seconds. However, the absence of Jan Ullrich, injury, and Marco Pantani, drug allegations, meant Armstrong had not yet proven himself against the biggest names. Stage wins included the Prologue, Stage 8, an individual time trial in Metz, an Alpine stage on Stage 9, and the second individual time trial on Stage 19. In 2000, Ullrich and Pantani returned to challenge Armstrong. The race that began a 6-year rivalry between Ullrich and Armstrong ended in victory for Armstrong by 6 minutes 2 seconds over Ullrich. Armstrong took 1 stage in the 2000 Tour, the second individual time trial on Stage 19. In 2001, Armstrong again took top honors, beating Ullrich by 6 minutes 44 seconds. In 2002, Ullrich did not participate due to suspension, and Armstrong won by 7 minutes over Joseph Bellacchi. The pattern returned in 2003, Armstrong taking first place and Ullrich second. Only a minute and a second separated the two at the end of the final day in Paris. U.S. Postal won the team time trial on Stage 4, while Armstrong took Stage 15, despite having been knocked off on the ascent to Les Ardennes, the final climb, when a spectator's bag caught his right handlebar. Ullrich waited for him, which brought Ullrich fair play honors. In 2004, Armstrong finished first, 6 minutes 19 seconds ahead of German Andreas Klöden. Ullrich was fourth, a further 2 minutes 31 seconds behind. Armstrong won a personal best 5 individual stages, plus the team time trial. He became the first biker since Gino Bartali in 1948 to win 3 consecutive mountain stages: 15, 16, and 17. The individual time trial on Stage 16 up Alpe d'Huez was won in style by Armstrong as he passed Ivan Basso on the way despite having set out 2 minutes after the Italian. He won sprint finishes from Basso in stages 13 and 15 and made up a significant gap in the last 250 m to nip Klöden at the line in Stage 17. He won the final individual time trial, Stage 19, to complete his personal record of stage wins. In 2005, Armstrong was beaten by David Zabriskie in the Stage 1 time trial by 2 seconds, despite having passed Ullrich on the road. His Discovery Channel team won the team time trial, while Armstrong won the final individual time trial. In the mountain stages, Armstrong's lead was attacked multiple times, mostly by Ivan Basso, but also by T-Mobile leaders Jan Ullrich, Andreas Klöden and Alexander Vinokurov and former teammate Levi Leipheimer. But still, the American champion handled them well, maintained his lead and, on some occasions, increased it. To complete his record-breaking feat, Armstrong crossed the line on the Champs-Élysées on July 24 to win his 7th consecutive Tour, finishing 4 M40s ahead of Basso, with Ullrich third. Another record achieved that year was that Armstrong completed the Tour at the highest pace in the race's history, His average speed over the whole tour was 41.7 km per hour, 26 miles per hour. On July 24, 2005, Armstrong announced his retirement from professional cycling.
Comeback. Astana Pro Team, 2009.
Armstrong announced on September 9, 2008, that he would return to pro cycling with the express goal of participating in the 2009 Tour de France. Velo News reported that Armstrong would race for no salary or bonuses and would post his internally tested blood results online. Australian ABC Radio reported on September 24, 2008, that Armstrong would compete in the UCI Tour Down Under through Adelaide and surrounding areas in January 2009. UCI rules say a cyclist has to be in an anti-doping program for 6 months before an event, but UCI allowed Armstrong to compete. He had to retire from the 2009 Vuelta a Castilla y León during the first stage after crashing in a rider pile-up in Baltanas, Spain, and breaking his collarbone. Armstrong flew back to Austin, Texas, for corrective surgery, which was successful, and was back training on a bicycle within 4 days of his operation. On April 10, 2009, a controversy emerged between the French anti-doping agency AFLD and Armstrong and his team manager, Joan Bruyneel, stemming from a March 17, 2009, encounter with an AFLD anti-doping official who visited Armstrong after a training ride in Beaulieu-sur-Mer. When the official arrived, Armstrong claims he asked, and was granted, permission to take a shower while Bruyneel checked the official's credentials. In late April, the AFLD cleared Armstrong of any wrongdoing. Armstrong returned to racing after his collarbone injury at the Tour of the Gila in New Mexico on April 29. On July 7, in the fourth stage of the 2009 Tour de France, Armstrong narrowly failed to win the yellow jersey after his Astana team won the team time trial. His Astana team won the 39 km lap of Montpellier, but Armstrong ended up just over 0.2 of a second, 0.22 outside of Fabian Cancellara's overall lead. Armstrong finished the 2009 Tour de France in third place overall, 5:24 behind the overall winner, his Astana teammate Alberto Contador.
Team Radio Shack, 2010-11.
On July 21, 2009, Armstrong announced that he would return to the Tour de France in 2010. Radio Shack was named as the main sponsor for Armstrong's 2010 team, named Team Radio Shack. Armstrong made his 2010 season debut at the Tour Down Under, where he finished 25th out of the 127 riders who completed the race. He made his European season debut at the 2010 Vuelta a Murcia, finishing in 7th place overall. Armstrong was also set to compete in several classics such as the Milan, San Remo, Amstel Gold Race, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and the Tour of Flanders, but bouts with gastroenteritis forced his withdrawal from 3 of the 4 races. Armstrong returned to the United States in mid-April to compete in the Tour of Gila and May's Tour of California, both as preparation for the Tour de France. However, he crashed outside Visalia early in Stage 5 of the Tour of California and had to withdraw from the race. He showed fine shape after recovering from the Tour of California crash, placing second in the Tour of Switzerland and third in the Tour of Luxembourg. On June 28, Armstrong announced via Twitter that the 2010 edition would be his final Tour de France. Armstrong put in an impressive performance in the Tour de France Prologue TT, finishing third, but was plagued by crashes in later stages that put him out of GC contention, especially a serious crash in Stage 8. He rallied for the brutal Pinelli in Stage 16, working as a key player in a successful break that included teammate Chris Horner. He finished his last tour in 23rd place, 39 minutes 20 seconds behind former winner Alberto Contador. He was also a key rider in helping Team Radio Shack win the team competition, beating Kees Deppen by 9 minutes, 15 seconds. In October, he announced the end of his international career after the Tour Down Under in January 2011. He stated that after January 2011, he will race only in the US with the Radio Shack domestic team. Armstrong announced his retirement from competitive cycling for good on February 16, 2011, while still facing a U.S. federal investigation into doping allegations.
Physical attributes.
Armstrong has recorded an aerobic capacity of 83.8 milliliters per kilogram min, VO2 max, much higher than the average person, 40 to 50, but lower than some other Tour de France winners, such as Miguel Indurain, 88.0, although reports exist that Indurain tested at 92 to 94, and Greg LeMond, 92.5. At his peak, he had a resting heart rate of 32 to 34 beats per minute, BPM, with a maximum heart rate of 201 BPM.
Collaboration of sponsors.
Armstrong revolutionized the support behind his well-funded teams, asking sponsors and suppliers to contribute and act as part of the team. For example, rather than having the frame, handlebars, and tires designed and developed by separate companies with little interaction, his teams adopted a Formula One relationship with sponsors and suppliers named F1, taking full advantage of the combined resources of several organizations working in close communication. The team, Trek, Nike, AMD, Bontrager, a Trek company, Shimano, SRAM, Gyro and Oakley, collaborated for an array of products.
Personal life.
Armstrong owns homes in Austin, Texas, and Aspen, Colorado, as well as a ranch in the Texas Hill Country. He also has become a popular Twitter user, with almost 4 million followers as of January 2013.
Relationships and children.
Armstrong met Kristen Richard in June 1997. They married on May 1, 1998, and had 3 children, Luke David, born October 1999, and twins Isabel Rose and Grace Elizabeth, born November 2001. The pregnancy was possible through sperm Armstrong banked 3 years earlier, before chemotherapy and surgery. The couple divorced in 2003. At Armstrong's request, his children flew in for the Tour de France podium ceremony in 2005, where Luke helped his father hoist the trophy, while his daughters, in yellow dresses, held the stuffed lion mascot and bouquet of yellow flowers. Armstrong began dating singer-songwriter Sheryl Crow in late 2003. The couple announced their engagement in September 2005 and their split in February 2006. In March 2007, Armstrong began dating designer Tory Burch. They announced their breakup in October 2007. In July 2008, Armstrong began dating Anna Hansen after meeting through Armstrong's charity work. In December 2008, Armstrong announced that Hansen was pregnant with the couple's first child. Although it was believed that Armstrong could no longer father children, due to having undergone chemotherapy for testicular cancer, this child was conceived naturally. Their son, Maxwell Edward Armstrong, was born in 2009 in Aspen, Colorado. Armstrong announced the birth via Twitter. In April 2010, Armstrong, using Twitter, announced that Hansen was having his 5th child. Olivia Marie Armstrong was born in October 2010.
Politics.
In the New York Times article, teammate George Hincapie hinted that Armstrong would run for governor of Texas after cycling. In the July 2005 issue of Outside magazine, Armstrong hinted at running for governor, although not in 2006. Armstrong and former President George W. Bush, a Republican and fellow Texan, call themselves friends. Bush called Armstrong in France to congratulate him after his 2005 victory. In August 2005, The Times reported the president had invited Armstrong to his Prairie Chapel Ranch to go mountain biking. In a 2003 interview with The Observer, Armstrong said, "He's a personal friend, but we've all got the right not to agree with our friends." In August 2005, Armstrong hinted he had changed his mind about politics. In an interview with Charlie Rose on PBS on August 1, 2005, Armstrong pointed out that running for governor would require the commitment that led him to retire from cycling. Also, in August 2005, Armstrong said that he was no longer considering politics. Armstrong created a YouTube video in 2007 with former President George H. W. Bush to successfully pass Proposition 15, a $3 billion taxpayer bond initiative which created the Cancer Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. Armstrong was co-chair of a California campaign committee to pass the California Cancer Research Act, a ballot measure defeated by California voters on June 5, 2012. Had it passed, the measure was projected to generate over $500 million annually for cancer research, smoking cessation programs and tobacco law enforcement by levying a $1 per pack tax on tobacco products in California.
History of allegations of doping.
For much of his career, Armstrong faced persistent allegations of doping. Armstrong denied all such allegations until January 2013. Often claiming that he never had any positive test in the drug tests he has taken over his cycling career. Armstrong has been criticized for his disagreements with outspoken opponents of doping such as Paul Kimmage and Christoph Bassens. Bassens was a rider for Festina at the time of the Festina affair and was widely reported by teammates as being the only rider on the team not to be taking performance-enhancing drugs. Bassens wrote a number of articles for a French newspaper during the 1999 Tour de France which made references to doping in the peloton. Subsequently, Armstrong had an altercation with Bassens during the 1999 Tour de France where Bassens said Armstrong rode up alongside on the Alpe d'Huez stage to tell him it was a mistake to speak out the way I, Bassens, do and he, Armstrong, asked why I was doing it. I told him that I'm thinking of the next generation of riders. Then he said, "Why don't you leave, then?" Armstrong confirmed the story. On the main evening news on TF1, a national television station, Armstrong said, "His accusations aren't good for cycling, for his team, for me, for anybody. If he thinks cycling works like that, he's wrong and he would be better off going home." Kimmage, a professional cyclist in the 1980s who later became a sports journalist, referred to Armstrong as a cancer in cycling. He also asked Armstrong questions in relation to his admiration for dopers at a press conference at the Tour of California in 2009, provoking a scathing reaction from Armstrong. This spat continued and is exemplified by Kimmage's articles in the Irish Independent. Armstrong continued to deny the use of illegal performance-enhancing drugs for 4 more years, describing himself as the most tested athlete in the world. From his return to cycling in the fall of 2008 through March 2009, Armstrong claims to have submitted to 24 unannounced drug tests by various anti-doping authorities.
Working with Michele Ferrari.
Armstrong was criticized for working with controversial trainer Michele Ferrari. Ferrari claimed that he was introduced to Lance by Eddie Meschx in 1995. Greg LeMond described himself as devastated on hearing of them working together, while Tour de France organizer Jean-Marie Leblanc said, "I am not happy the two names are mixed." Following Ferrari's later overturned conviction for sporting fraud and abuse of the medical profession, Armstrong claimed he suspended his professional relationship with him, saying that he had zero tolerance for anyone convicted of using or facilitating the use of performance-enhancing drugs, and denying that Ferrari had ever suggested, prescribed or provided me with any performance-enhancing drugs. Though Ferrari was banned from practicing medicine with cyclists by the Italian Cycling Federation, according to Italian law enforcement authorities, Armstrong met with Ferrari as recently as 2010 in a country outside of Italy. According to Cycling News, USADA reveals an intimate role played by Dr. Michele Ferrari in masterminding Armstrong's Tour de France success. According to the USADA report, Armstrong paid Ferrari over $1 million in payments from 1996 to 2006, countering Armstrong's claim that he severed his professional relationship with Ferrari in 2004. The report also includes numerous eyewitness accounts of Ferrari injecting Armstrong with EPO on a number of occasions.
LA Confidential, 2004.
In 2004, reporters Pierre Bolster and David Walsh published a book alleging Armstrong had used performance-enhancing drugs, LA Confidential, Les Secrets de Lance Armstrong. Another figure in the book, Steve Swart, claims he and other riders, including Armstrong, began using drugs in 1995 while members of the Motorola team, a claim denied by other team members. Among the allegations in the book were claims by Armstrong's former soigner Emma O'Reilly that a backdated prescription for cortisone had been produced in 1999 to avoid a positive test. A 1999 urine sample at the Tour de France showed traces of corticosteroid. A medical certificate showed he used an approved cream for saddle sores which contained the substance. O'Reilly said she heard team officials worrying about Armstrong's positive test for steroids during the tour. She said, "They were in a panic, saying, 'What are we going to do? What are we going to do?'" According to O'Reilly, the solution was to get one of their compliant doctors to issue a predated prescription for a steroid-based ointment to combat saddle sores. O'Reilly said she would have known if Armstrong had saddle sores as she would have administered any treatment for it. O'Reilly said that Armstrong told her, "Now, Emma, you know enough to bring me down." O'Reilly said on other occasions she was asked to dispose of used syringes for Armstrong and pick up strange parcels for the team. Allegations in the book were reprinted in the UK newspaper The Sunday Times in a story by Deputy Sports Editor Alan English in June 2004. Armstrong sued for libel, and the paper settled out of court after a High Court judge in a pre-trial ruling stated that the article meant accusation of guilt and not simply reasonable grounds to suspect. The newspaper's lawyers issued the statement, "The Sunday Times has confirmed to Mr. Armstrong that it never intended to accuse him of being guilty of taking any performance-enhancing drugs and sincerely apologized for any such impression." The same authors, Pierre Bolster and David Walsh, subsequently published L.A. Official and Le Sailor, The Dirty Trick, further pressing their claims that Armstrong used performance-enhancing drugs throughout his career. On March 31, 2005, Mike Anderson filed a brief in Travis County District Court in Texas, as part of a legal battle following his termination in November 2004 as an employee of Armstrong. Anderson worked for Armstrong for 2 years as a personal assistant. In the brief, Anderson claimed that he discovered a box of androstenone while cleaning a bathroom in Armstrong's apartment in Girona, Spain. Androstenone is not on the list of banned drugs. Anderson stated in a subsequent deposition that he had no direct knowledge of Armstrong using a banned substance. Armstrong denied the claim and issued a countersuit. The two men reached an out-of-court settlement in November 2005. The terms of the agreement were not disclosed. In November 2012, Times newspapers republished all of David Walsh's articles as well as the original LA Confidential article by Alan English in a book Lanced, The Shaming of Lance Armstrong. The Times is said to be considering taking action to recoup monies from Armstrong in relation to the settlement and court costs. In December 2012 the Sunday Times filed suit against Armstrong for $1.5 million. In its suit, the paper is seeking a return of the original settlement, plus interest and the cost of defending the original case. In August 2013, Armstrong and the Sunday Times reached an undisclosed settlement.
Tour de France urine tests, 2005.
On August 23, 2005, L'Equipe, a major French daily sports newspaper, reported on its front page under the headline Le Mensonge Armstrong, the Armstrong lie that 6 urine samples taken from the cyclist during the prologue and 5 stages of the 1999 Tour de France, frozen and stored since at Laboratoire National de Dépistage du Dopage de Châtenay-Malabry, LNDD, had tested positive for erythropoietin, EPO, in recent retesting conducted as part of a research project into EPO testing methods. Armstrong immediately replied on his website, saying, "Unfortunately, the witch hunt continues and tomorrow's article is nothing short of tabloid journalism." The paper even admits in its own article that the science in question here is faulty and that I have no way to defend myself. They state, "There will therefore be no counter-exam nor regulatory prosecutions, in a strict sense, since defendants' rights cannot be respected. I will simply restate what I have said many times, I have never taken performance-enhancing drugs." In October 2005, in response to calls from the International Olympic Committee and the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, for an independent investigation, the UCI appointed Dutch lawyer Emile Vrijman to investigate the handling of urine tests by the French National Anti-Doping Laboratory, LNDD. Vrijman was head of the Dutch Anti-Doping Agency for 10 years. Since then he has worked as a defense attorney defending high-profile athletes against doping charges. Vrijman's report cleared Armstrong because of improper handling and testing. The report said tests on urine samples were conducted improperly and fell so short of scientific standards that it was completely irresponsible to suggest they constitute evidence of anything. The recommendation of the Commission's report was no disciplinary action against any rider on the basis of LNDD research. It also called upon the WADA and LNDD to submit themselves to an investigation by an outside independent authority. The IOC Ethics Commission subsequently censured Dick Pound, the president of WADA and a member of the IOC, for his statements in the media that suggested wrongdoing by Armstrong. In April 2009, Michael Orsenden said that the LNDD absolutely had no way of knowing athlete identity from the sample they're given. They have a number on them, but that's never linked to an athlete's name. The only group that had both the number and the athlete's name is the federation, in this case it was the UCI. He added there was only two conceivable ways that synthetic EPO could have gotten into those samples. One, is that Lance Armstrong used EPO during the '99 Tour. The other way it could have gotten the urine was if, as Lance Armstrong seems to believe, the laboratory spiked those samples. Now, that's an extraordinary claim, and there's never ever been any evidence the laboratory has ever spiked an athlete sample, even during the Cold War, where you would have thought there was a real political motive to frame an athlete from a different country. There's never been any suggestion that it happened. Orsenden's statements are at odds with the findings of the Vrijman report. According to Mr. Rezit, the manner in which the LNDD had structured the results table of its report, that is listing the sequence of each of the batches, as well as the exact number of urine samples per batch, in the same, chronological, order as the stages of the 1999 Tour de France they were collected at, was already sufficient to allow him to determine the exact stage these urine samples referred to and subsequently the identity of the riders who were tested at that stage. The Vrijman report also says Le Monde of July 21 and 23, 1999 reveal that the press knew the contents of original doping forms of the 1999 Tour de France.
SCA Promotions Case, 2005.
In June 2006, French newspaper Le Monde reported claims by Betsy and Frankie Andrew during a deposition that Armstrong had admitted using performance-enhancing drugs to his physician just after brain surgery in 1996. The Andrews testimony was related to litigation between Armstrong and SCA Promotions, a Texas company attempting to withhold a $5 million bonus. This was settled out of court with SCA paying Armstrong and Tailwind Sports $7.5 million, to cover the $5 million bonus plus interest and lawyers' fees. The testimony stated, and so the doctor asked him a few questions, not many, and then one of the questions he asked was, "Have you ever used any performance-enhancing drugs?" And Lance said yes. And the doctor asked, "What were they?" And Lance said, "Growth hormone, cortisone, EPO, steroids and testosterone." Armstrong suggested Betsy Andrew may have been confused by possible mention of his post-operative treatment which included steroids and EPO that are taken to counteract wasting and red blood cell destroying effects of intensive chemotherapy. The Andrews allegation was not supported by any of the 8 other people present, including Armstrong's Dr. Craig Nichols, or his medical history. According to Greg LeMond, who has been embroiled with his own disputes with Armstrong, he, LeMond, had a recorded conversation, the transcript of which was reviewed by National Public Radio, NPR, with Stephanie McIlvaine, Armstrong's contact at Oakley Incorporated, in which she said of Armstrong's alleged admission, "You know, I was in that room. I heard it." However, McIlvaine has contradicted LeMond allegations on the issue and denied under oath that the incident in question ever occurred in her sworn testimony. In July 2006, The Los Angeles Times published a story on the allegations raised in the SCA case. The report cited evidence at the trial including the results of the LNDD test and an analysis of these results by an expert witness. From the Los Angeles Times article, the results, Australian researcher Michael Orsenden testified in Dallas, show Armstrong's levels rising and falling, consistent with a series of injections during the tour. Orsenden, a paid expert retained by SCA Promotions, told arbitrators the results painted a compelling picture that the world's most famous cyclist used EPO in the '99 Tour. Orsenden's findings were disputed by the Vyman report, which pointed to procedural and privacy issues in dismissing the LNDD test results. The Los Angeles Times article also provided information on testimony given by Armstrong's former teammate, Swart, Andrew and his wife Betsy, and instant messaging conversation between Andrew and Jonathan Vaughters regarding blood doping in the peloton. Vaughters signed a statement disavowing the comments and stating he had no personal knowledge that any team in the Tour de France, including Armstrong's Discovery team in 2005, engaged in any prohibited conduct whatsoever. Andrews signed a statement affirming the conversation took place as indicated on the instant messaging log submitted to the court. The SCA trial was settled out of court, and the Los Angeles Times reported, though no verdict or finding of facts was rendered, Armstrong called the outcome proof that the doping allegations were baseless. The Los Angeles Times article provides a review of the disputed positive EPO test, allegations and sworn testimony against Armstrong, but notes that, they are filled with conflicting testimony, hearsay and circumstantial evidence admissible in arbitration hearings but questionable in more formal legal proceedings. In October 2012, following the publication of the USADA reasoned decision, SCA Promotions announced its intention to recoup the monies paid to Armstrong totaling in excess of $7 million. Armstrong's legal representative Tim Herman stated in June, when SCA decided to settle the case, it settled the entire matter forever. No backs. No redos. No do-overs. SCA knowingly and independently waived any right to make further claims to any of the money it paid. SCA's Jeff Dorr stated that on October 30, 2012, Armstrong was sent a formal request for the return of $12 million in bonuses. It is alleged that Armstrong's legal team has offered a settlement of $1 million.
Federal investigation, 2010 to 2012.
On May 20, 2010, Floyd Landis admitted to doping and accused Armstrong of the same. He also met with the Food and Drug Administration and federal agent Jeff Nowitzki, who uncovered the BALCO doping ring. Based on Landis' allegations, Nowitzki led a federal investigation into possible crimes conducted by Armstrong and the U.S. Postal Service cycling team. On July 21, 2010, while competing in the 2010 Tour de France, he hired a criminal defense lawyer to represent him in the investigation. On February 3, 2012, U.S. federal prosecutors officially dropped their criminal investigation with no charges. The closing of the case was announced without an explanation by U.S. Attorney Andre Barot, Jr. When Nowitzki was asked to comment on it, he declined.
USADA investigation, 2011 to 2012.
In June 2012, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, USADA, accused Armstrong of doping and trafficking of drugs, based on blood samples from 2009 and 2010, and testimonies from witnesses including former teammates. Further, he was accused of putting pressure on teammates to take unauthorized performance-enhancing drugs as well. Armstrong was initially suspended and eventually banned from participating in sports sanctioned by WADA. He chose not to appeal the ban, saying it would not be worth the toll on his family. After years of public denials, Armstrong reversed course and admitted doping in an interview with Oprah Winfrey in January 2013. While admitting in the interview to the things he did, he also said it was absolutely not true that he was doping in 2009 to 2010 and that the last time he crossed the line was in 2005.
Impact on sponsors.
After USADA's report, all of Armstrong's sponsors dropped him. He reportedly lost $75 million in a day. On May 28, 2013, Nike announced that it would be cutting all ties to Livestrong.
Whistleblower and other lawsuits, 2010-present.
In 2010, one of Lance Armstrong's former teammates, the American Floyd Landis, whose 2006 Tour de France victory was nullified after a positive doping test, sent a series of emails to cycling officials and sponsors admitting to, and detailing, his systematic use of performance-enhancing drugs during his career. The emails also claimed that other riders and cycling officials participated in doping, including Armstrong. Landis filed a federal whistleblower lawsuit against Armstrong under the Federal False Claims Act. The False Claims Act allows citizens to sue on behalf of the government alleging the government has been defrauded. The existence of the lawsuit, initially filed under seal, was first revealed by the Wall Street Journal in 2010. In the lawsuit, Landis alleged that Armstrong and team managers defrauded the U.S. government when they accepted money from the U.S. Postal Service. In January 2013, Justice Department officials recommended joining the federal lawsuit aimed at clawing back money from Armstrong. In February, the United States Department of Justice joined the whistleblower lawsuit, which also accuses former Postal Service team director Joan Bruyneel and Tailwind Sports, the firm that managed the Postal Service team, of defrauding the U.S. In November 2013, Armstrong settled a lawsuit with Acceptance Insurance Company, AIC. AIC had sought to recover $3 million it had paid Armstrong as bonuses for winning the Tour de France from 1999 to 2001. The suit was settled for an undisclosed sum 1 day before Armstrong was scheduled to give a deposition under oath. In April 2014, documents from the AIC case were filed by lawyers representing Floyd Landis in relation to the whistleblower suit. In these documents, Armstrong stated under oath that Pepe Marti, Dr. Pedro Slayer, Dr. Luis Garcia del Moral and Dr. Michel Ferrari, had all provided him with doping products in the period up until 2005. He also named people who had transported or acted as couriers, as well as people that were aware of his doping practices. 1 week later, the USADA banned Joan Bruyneel from cycling for 10 years and Pedro Slayer and Jose Pepe Marti for 8 years.
Outside of cycling.
In 1997, Armstrong founded the Lance Armstrong Foundation, which supports people affected by cancer. The foundation raises awareness of cancer and has raised more than $325 million from the sale of yellow Livestrong bracelets. During his first retirement beginning after the 2005 season, he also maintained other interests. He was the pace car driver of the Chevrolet Corvette Z06 for the 2006 Indianapolis 500. In 2007, Armstrong with Andre Agassi, Muhammad Ali, Warwick Dunn, Jeff Gordon, Mia Hamm, Tony Hawk, Andrea Jaeger, Jackie Joyner-Kersee, Mario Lemieux, Alonzo Mourning, and Cal Ripken, Jr. founded Athletes for Hope, a charity that helps professional athletes become involved in charitable causes and aims to inspire non-athletes to volunteer and support the community. In August 2009, Armstrong headlined the inaugural charity ride Pelotonia in Columbus, Ohio, riding over 100 miles on Saturday with a large group of cyclists. He addressed the riders the Friday evening before the two-day ride and helped the ride raise millions for cancer research.
Marathons.
Armstrong ran the 2006 New York City Marathon with 2 friends. He assembled a pace team of Alberto Salazar, Joan Benoit Samuelson, and Hicham El Garouj to help him reach 3 hours. He finished in 2 hours 59 m36s, in 856th place. He said the race was extremely difficult compared to the Tour de France. The NYC Marathon had a dedicated camera on Armstrong throughout the event which, according to Armstrong, pushed him to continue through points in which he would have normally stopped and stretched. He also helped raise $600,000 for his Live Strong campaign during the run. Armstrong ran the 2007 NYC Marathon in 2 hours 46 m43s, finishing 232nd. On April 21, 2008, he ran the Boston Marathon in 2 hours 50 m58, finishing in the top 500.
Triathlon.
Armstrong made his return to triathlon in the inaugural Ironman 70.3 Panama race, on February 12, 2012. He raced in the professional category, finishing with a time of 3:50 and 55 seconds, second overall to Bevan Doherty. Armstrong's splits were 19:22 for the 1.2-mile swim, 2:10 and 18 seconds for the 56-mile bike ride, and 1:17 and 1 second for the 13.1-mile run. He also entered half-Ironman distance races in Texas, 7th in St. Croix, 3rd before breaking through with victories at Ironman 70.3 Florida and Ironman 70.3 Hawaii in overall times of 3:45 and 38 seconds and 3:50 and 58 seconds, respectively.
Post-cycling.
In July 2011 and July 2013, Armstrong participated in the non-competitive Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride across Iowa.
Business and investments.
Armstrong owns a coffee shop in downtown Austin, Texas called Juan Pelota Cafe. The name is a joking reference to his testicular cancer, with the name Juan being considered by some a homophone for one, and pelota being the Spanish word for ball. Out of the same building, Armstrong owns and operates a bike shop named Mellow Johnny's, after another nickname of his derived from the tour term Maillot Jaune, which is French for yellow jersey. In 2001, Armstrong provided funding to launch Wonders and Worries, a non-profit organization in Austin, Texas that provides counseling and support for children who have a parent with a serious or life-threatening disease. In 2008, Armstrong bought several $1 million of stock in the American bicycle component manufacturer SRAM Corporation, and has served as their technical advisor. SRAM bought those shares back from him in preparation for a public offering. Armstrong also owns a small share of Trek Bicycle Corporation.
Palmares. Grand Tour's overall classification results timeline.
Withdrew equals WD. Voided results struck through.
Documentary films.
Road to Paris, 2001, documentary. The Armstrong Lie, 2013, documentary.
Filmography.
Armstrong appeared as himself in the following films: Dodgeball, A True Underdog Story, 2004, cameo appearance. You, Me and Dupree, 2006, cameo appearance.
Accolades.
United States Olympic Committee, USOC, Sportsman of the Year, 1999, 2001, 2002, 2003, Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, World's Most Outstanding Athlete Award, Jesse Owens International Trophy, 2000, Reuters Sportsman of the Year, 2003, Prince of Asturias Award in Sports, 2000, Sports Ethics Fellows by the Institute for International Sport, 2003, Velo d'Or Award by Velo magazine in France, 1999, 2000, 2001, 2003, 2004, Mdrisio d'Or Award in Switzerland, 1999, Premio Coppi Bicai d'Oro Trophy by the Fausto Coppi Foundation in conjunction with La Gazzetta dello Sport, 1999, 2000, Marca Legend Award by Marca, a Spanish sports daily in Madrid, 2004, ISPI Award for Best Male Athlete, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, ISPI Award for GMC Professional Grade Play Award, 2005, ISPI Award for Best Comeback Athlete, 2000, ESPN Intersports ARETE Award for Courage in Sport, Professional Division, 1999, ABC's Wide World of Sports Athlete of the Year, 1999, Favorite Athlete Award at Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, 2006, Presidential Delegation to the 19 Olympic Winter Games, 2002, Sports Illustrated Magazine's Sportsman of the Year, 2002, Velo News Magazine's International Cyclist of the Year, 2000, 2001, 2003, 2004, Velo News Magazine's North American Male Cyclist of the Year, 1993, 1995, 1996, 1998, 1999, 2002, 2005, William Hill Sports Book of the Year, It's Not About the Bike, My Journey Back to Life, 2000, Triathlon Magazine's Rookie of the Year, 1988, Pace Car Driver for the Indianapolis 500, 2006, An Asteroid, June 9, 1994 was named 12,373 Lance Armstrong in honor of him. 6-mile Lance Armstrong Bikeway through downtown Austin, Texas, built by the city of Austin at a cost of $3.2 million. Mildred Babe Didrikson Zacharias Courage Award presented by the United States Sports Academy, 1999. Samuel S. Beard Award for Greatest Public Service by an individual 35 years or under, an award given out annually by Jefferson Awards, 2001. Rescinded Awards. BBC Overseas Sports Personality of the Year Award, 2003, Honorary Doctorate of Humane Letters, Tufts University, 2006, Key to the City of Adelaide, the capital of South Australia, 2012, Laureus World Sports Award for Sportsman of the Year winner, 2003, Laureus World Sports Award for Comeback of the Year winner, 2000, Laureus World Sports Award for Sportsman of the Year nominated, 2002, 2004, 2005, 2006, Laureus World Sports Award for Comeback of the Year nominated, 2010, Grand Prix Serge Kampf de l'Académie des Sports, France, 2004, Légion d'honneur, France, 2005.
Notes.
Other top riders in those 7 tours have been involved in doping scandals. Several had their results stripped and/or were banned, and some subsequently admitted to it. Those riders include Jan Ullrich, Andreas Klodden, Joseph Belicki, Raymondus Rumses, Alex Sewell, Ivan Basso, and Alexander Vinokurov. In light of that, UCI decided with respect to Lance Armstrong that his stripped wins would not be relocated to other riders. Therefore the tours from 1999 to 2005 have no official winner. In return for cooperating with USADA, during its investigation in 2012, Armstrong's teammates were given reduced bans in line with WADA guidelines allowing reduction of ban for significant cooperation. Armstrong made demands in return for testifying completely. Brian Cookson of the UCI said that it was most unlikely that the USADA would agree to Armstrong's demands. In response to that, Armstrong refused.
Lance Armstrong.
Lance Edward Armstrong is an American former professional road racing cyclist. Armstrong had won the Tour de France a record 7 consecutive times between 1999 and 2005 before he was disqualified from all those races and banned from competitive cycling for life, for doping offenses by the Union Cycliste Internationale in 2012, after the United States Anti-Doping Agency presented it the evidence. A cancer survivor, he is the founder of the Livestrong Foundation, originally called the Lance Armstrong Foundation, which provides support for cancer patients. At age 16, Armstrong began competing as a triathlete and was a national sprint course triathlon champion in 1989 and 1990. In 1992, Armstrong began his career as a professional cyclist with the Motorola team. He had notable success between 1993 and 1996, including the World Championship in 1993, Classica de San Sebastian in 95, Tour du Pont in 95 and 96, and a handful of stage victories in Europe, including stage 18 of the 1995 Tour de France. In October 1996, he was diagnosed with testicular cancer that had spread to his brain, lungs and abdomen. His cancer treatments included brain and testicular surgery and extensive chemotherapy. In February 1997, he was declared cancer-free, and the same year he founded the Lance Armstrong Foundation. By January 1998, Armstrong had renewed serious cycling training, having signed a new racing contract with U.S. Postal. He was a member of the U.S. Postal Discovery Team between 1998 and 2005. On July 24, 2000,
Cancer.
On October 2, 1996, then aged 25, Armstrong was diagnosed as having stage 3, advanced, testicular cancer, embryonal carcinoma. The cancer spread to his brain, lungs and abdomen. On his first visit to urologist Jim Reeves, in Austin, Texas, for his cancer symptoms, he was coughing up blood and had a swollen testicle. On October 3, Armstrong had an orchiectomy to remove his diseased testicle. Asked in a later interview what he thought Armstrong's chances really were, Dr. Reeves said almost none. We told Lance initially 20 to 50% chance, mainly to give him hope. But with the kind of cancer he had, with the X-rays, the blood tests, almost no hope. After receiving a letter from and talking to an oncologist at Vanderbilt University, Dr. Stephen Wolfe, Armstrong went to the Indiana University Medical Center in Indianapolis. He decided to receive the rest of his treatment there. The standard treatment for Armstrong's cancer was a cocktail of the drugs bleomycin, etoposide, and cisplatin, or platinal, BEP. The first chemocycle that Armstrong underwent was BEP. For the 3 remaining chemocycles, however, he was given an alternative, vinblastine etoposide, ifosfamide, and cisplatin, VIP, to avoid the lung toxicity associated with bleomycin. This decision saved his cycling career. At Indiana University, Lawrence Einhorn had pioneered the use of cisplatin to treat testicular cancer. Armstrong's primary oncologist there was Craig Nichols. On October 25, his brain lesions were surgically removed by Scott A. Shapiro, MD, Professor. 2005, Armstrong retired from racing at the end of the 2005 Tour de France, but returned to competitive cycling with the Astana team in January 2009. Between 2010 and 2011, he raced with the UCI Pro team he helped found, Team Radio Shack. On February 16, 2011, Armstrong announced his retirement from competitive cycling. At the time he was facing a U.S. federal investigation into doping allegations. In June 2012, USADA charged Armstrong with having used illicit performance-enhancing drugs. On August 24, 2012, USADA announced that Armstrong had been issued a lifetime ban from competition, applicable to all sports which follow the World Anti-Doping Agency Code. USADA also stripped Armstrong of his 7 Tour de France titles. The USADA report concluded that Armstrong engaged in the most sophisticated, professionalized and successful doping program that sport has ever seen. On October 22, 2012, UCI upheld USADA's decision. It also decided that his stripped wins would not be allocated to other riders. Armstrong chose not to appeal the decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Despite having denied drug use throughout his career, in January 2013 he admitted to doping in a television interview conducted by Oprah Winfrey. In September 2013, he was asked by UCI's new president, Brian Cookson, to testify completely about his doping. Armstrong refused to testify until and unless he got a complete amnesty, which Cookson said is most unlikely to happen.
Early life.
Armstrong was born on September 18, 1971, at Methodist Hospital in Plano. The breakthrough victory was the UCI Road World Championship held in Norway. Before his World's win, he took his first win at the Tour de France, in the stage from Chalon-sur-Marne to Verdun. He was 97th in the general classification when he retired after stage 12. He also collected the Thrift Drug Triple Crown of Cycling, the Thrift Drug Classic in Pittsburgh, the Kmart West Virginia Classic, and the Core States USPRO National Championship in Philadelphia. In 1994, he again won the Thrift Drug Classic and came second in the Tour du Pont in the United States. His successes in Europe occurred when he placed second in Liège-Bastogne-Liège and the Classico de San Sebastian, where just 2 years before, he had finished in last place as his first all-pro event in Europe. He won the Classico de San Sebastian in 1995, followed by an overall victory in the penultimate Tour du Pont and a handful of stage victories in Europe, including the stage to Limoges in the Tour de France, 3 days after the death of his teammate Fabio Casartelli, who crashed on the descent of the Col de Portet d'Aspet on the 15th stage. Armstrong's successes were much the same in 1996. He became the first American to win the La Flèche Wallonne and again won the Tour du Pont. However, he was able to compete for only 5 days in the Tour de France. In the 1996 Olympic Games, he finished 6th in the time trial and 12th in the road race. In August 1996, following the Leeds Classic, Armstrong signed a 2-year, $2 million deal with the French Cofidis cycling team. Joining him in signing contracts with the French team were teammates Frankie Andrew and Laurent Medours. 2 months later, in October 1996, he was diagnosed with advanced testicular cancer. Texas, north of Dallas, to Linda Gale, née Munium, a secretary, and Eddie Charles Gunderson, a route manager for the Dallas Morning News. His great-grandfather was the son of Norwegian immigrants. He was named after Lance Armstrong, a Dallas Cowboys wide receiver. His parents divorced when Lance was 2 and his father has 2 children from another relationship. His mother later married Terry Keith Armstrong, a wholesale salesman, who adopted Lance in 1974.
Career. Early career.
At the age of 12, Armstrong started his sporting career as a swimmer at the City of Plano Swim Club and finished 4th in Texas State 1,500-meter freestyle. He stopped swimming only races after seeing a poster for a junior triathlon, called the Iron Kids Triathlon, which he won at age 13. In the 1987-1988 Tri-Fed Texas, Tri-Fed was the former name of USA Triathlon, Armstrong was ranked the #1 triathlete in the 19 and under group. Second place was Chan McRae, who became a U.S. Postal Service cycling teammate and the 2002 USPRO national champion. Armstrong's total points in 1987 as an amateur were better than those of 5 professionals ranked higher than he was that year. At 16, Lance Armstrong became a professional triathlete and became national sprint course triathlon champion in 1989 and 1990 at 18 and 19, respectively.
Motorola, 1992-96.
In 1992 Armstrong turned professional with the Motorola cycling team, the successor of 7-Eleven team. In 1993, Armstrong won 10 one-day events and stage races,